Hi everyone, it's 2:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Liz Colon. I'm a Senior Education Specialist here at FranConnect. I also have with me Joe Reese. He's a Project Manager. He'll be working with us today to make sure all of your questions get answered. Today's topic is sales, and so we'll be focusing on a few of the questions we've gotten this week with regards to sales, and then we'll go ahead and move on to your questions. Just some rules for our sessions. So in Ask the Experts, you can ask anything that you'd like. You can ask via raising your hand on the GoTo training. You can also ask by placing your question in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we answer those questions out loud. At any point during the call, you can raise your hand and we will get to your questions by unmuting your line, and then you can ask your question verbally. So just make sure that you raise your hand and we'll unmute your line and make sure that you can go ahead and ask your question out loud. So just to reiterate, we're first going to cover some information with regards to the topic of the week. Then we'll open up the floor for questions, and questions can be about any topic. I will say that there have been instances in the last couple of calls where we've not been able to answer a question straight on the line because it's been specific to one organization's system, and if that's the case, we have followed up with each organization to answer those questions privately. So if you have a question and we say, well, we'll cover it offline, we'll make sure we get back to you and schedule a call to follow up. If you think of any questions during the week before next Friday's 2 p.m. session, you can email us at training@franconnect.com, and we'll be happy to answer your questions and also save them for our session during the week. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Before we do, there's just a quick review here of all of the topics we'll be covering and the dates we'll be covering those. So feel free to register. Our marketing team has been sending out emails letting our customers know that these sessions are available. And so you can register either via the email they're sending you, and you can register by date for your preference. Okay, so now that we're done with the PowerPoint piece of this, we're going to go ahead and jump into a few of the questions that came up on a recent sales call. So both questions that I'm going to cover here on the line do occur in the admin section. And the first question that came up is, how can I add an attachment to my FDD? And that's your franchise disclosure document. So if we're talking about sales, a lot of times you may be adding something to your FDD, and in this case, an example that we've been giving recently is an attachment of instructions on how your lead will complete the FDD. FranConnect, so we have created in our help section an easy guide under FAQs and user guides. Under job aids, under sales team, we have created a quick start guide for completing the FDD. These are simple instructions to ensure that your lead completes each step of the FDD, to include that really important step for the item 23. So this came up on a call yesterday where a franchisor asked me, hey Liz, why do I have some folks that have downloaded the FDD but they haven't completed the item 23? And the reason is because those leads have missed the step to click here, and this is the part that's really required by law. Okay? And so if we include these instructions, then every time a lead comes in, they have these instructions and they can complete it the right way. Or ideally, that's what we would want. So back into the system, into admin, under FDD management, we'll go into FDD email template summary. For most of you, FranConnect has already provided you with a standardized template, and you're probably using that template today. And it's very easy for you to make minor modifications to that template by selecting the action wheel and clicking Modify. What you'll find is a generic template provided to you. I do see franchisors come in here periodically and make changes, like we are pleased to send you a copy of the FranConnect franchise disclosure document, making it more specific to your organization, and that's totally doable and okay for you to customize this. But the part about attachments and making sure that the instructions always go out with this email is clicking this attachment button down here at the bottom. When you do so, you can choose the file. And I've got it pulled up right here. So we'll upload the instructions. We'll click Attach. And when we do, I already have them uploaded here. So you can see that now it's going to show 2, but that's okay. You're just looking to add the 1. We'll click Done. And then the instructions will be down at the bottom. Clearly, I can click the X to remove one of the copies of those instructions. And then I'll go ahead and click Modify to save the changes that I've made. Now, there's a chat that's come in on the line about this, so let me go ahead and take a quick look at it. So there's a question on the line that one of our organizations discloses a prospect at a later stage in the process. Can this be customized in the process? So perhaps I need to understand your organization set up a little bit better, but the timing for when the FDD is sent is completely specific per organization. So it does not matter what stage in the process the FDD is sent. You can send it whenever it is relevant to your business process. And we may have an opportunity to talk about that at a later time if you need more clarification. Okay, so that covers the attachments that are available in FDD, specifically the attachment to add that directions document. Of course, you may want to brand the directions to your organization versus FranConnect, and that's totally okay too. You can save your own version of that document and add it as attachment, and then make sure all of your leads fill out those instructions by using that attachment, or fill out the FDD by using those instructions. The next thing I want to cover that's fairly new to FranConnect Sky is unregistered states. So again, in the admin section, under the sales module, there's a section where you can define unregistered states. Your system may not yet be set up with this, so your page may look a little bit more like this. Unregistered states allows you to designate those areas where you are currently not selling franchises. The important thing is that you can also set up a campaign to campaign those leads more appropriately. So the leads that come in areas where you're not doing business, instead of saying, thank you so much for your inquiry, someone will get back to you really soon, and having them fall into that same welcome campaign drip that you may have going today, you can set up an unregistered state campaign that says, thank you so much for your inquiry. Currently, we're not selling franchises in your location, but if ever we're open up there, we'd be happy to contact you at that time, or give or take that type of email. So you'll choose the states where you're not selling franchises. You'll set up the unregistered state campaign, and you'll set up a status in which those sales leads will fall. When you're all set, you'll click Save or Update in our case, since we're making adjustments to this. And then, moving forward, any lead that comes in from Alaska, Guam, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands will receive a kind word just saying, we're not selling in your state today. All right, so that leaves the initial set of questions that we came to the session with. I see that there are some hands raised on the line, so I will go ahead and unmute. I'm sorry, the hand went away. So the session is now open for you to ask questions and for you to let us know what questions you have. So feel free to place them in the chat box or to raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. Don't be shy.
While people are thinking of questions, this is Joe chiming in. You can also utilize the Smart Group feature to go along with the unregistered state. So if you wanted to place all the leads that come in from one of the states you're not franchising in for easy access later, you could set up a Smart Group to automatically place those leads as they come in, so you can easily push them out of Drip Campaign if you do decide to start franchising in that state. So you can kind of keep them segmented for future use when needed.
And we covered Smart Groups, I think 2 sessions ago, where we talked about the benefit of Smart Groups to both sales and information manager. For those of you who may not have been in that initial call, Smart Groups are groups that allow you to categorize people into one place, not just people that are in your database today, but people who may come into your database. And so it's a sort of evolving group. So regular groups represent a moment in time. It's going to be anybody that is in the system presently will fall into this group. And Smart Groups say, and I'll choose that button here, we can include existing leads and future leads into this one group. So if we're not doing business in Puerto Rico today, but we may at a future date start selling in Puerto Rico, we can create a Puerto Rico Smart Group, and anybody that comes in from Puerto Rico can then be placed into that Smart Group, so that if we do decide 6 months from now or a year from now to open up Puerto Rico, we can then campaign these folks or reach back out to these folks more easily. So there is a question on the line that says, we have an auto-generated welcome email for all new leads. Can it be customized by lead source? Great question, Joyce. The answer is yes. So let's take a look at how we do that. Under email campaigns, we are going to go ahead and go into campaign triggers, and we're going to select manage campaign triggers. And we'll see here that we have status-based campaigns, which says when a new lead comes in, they're going to get the Welcome to Pizza 8 campaign. When we change their status to initial contact made, they're going to get the Periscope invitation. You can also set this up to be source-based. So I have a really good example here that I feel is very reflective of something that may occur in real life here, a good use case. So we can also set up source-based campaigns. And what this means is that, for example, we may be using a veteran-type franchise internet source. So perhaps we're trying to get veterans to come into our franchise organization. We're giving them an opportunity for future success, and we're using some type of internet source for that. And we specifically, rather than saying, welcome, thank you so much for your inquiry, someone will get back to you shortly, we want to say, welcome, thank you so much for your service. And so we want to acknowledge the service that they put in. And so if we wanted to go ahead and do that, we may set up a source-based campaign that says whenever it's an internet source, they're going to get this specific campaign. And we can do that down here. You can see the source category is an article or a broker or a referral or whatever, and we can set up a separate campaign for that. In this case, we've already set up the internet situation. And so in order to dive a little deeper into this, we're going to go ahead and say associate different campaigns for source details. So we don't want each and every internet lead that comes in to receive the same campaign. We want different internet leads to get different campaigns. So we're going to select associate different campaign for source details. And what this is going to say is that for every internet source, they're going to get the new candidate drip, with the exception of the franchises for veterans source, and they are going to get the veterans welcome campaign. Okay, so this means when the lead comes in and the lead is new, The system is going to read the source and say, based on the source, it's getting this campaign. Outside of source, when I then change this veteran who comes into my organization to initial contact made, he then can begin receiving the Periscope invitation that others get because we've set a priority here in the system. When a lead first comes in, it's first going to read, okay, what state are they from, and is it an unregistered state? And if it is, it's going to get our unregistered state campaign. After that, it's going to check the rules for any web forms that we've created. Most of you probably aren't on a virtual brochure, so that one's irrelevant to you. Next is going to be source, so the system's going to say, okay, based on the source that it came in from, what campaign is it going to get? And then after that, it's going to say, okay, based on the status, so next when we change the status, it's going to change the campaign. I hope that answers the question, and let me see if there are any more that have come in on the line.
No, that's great.
Okay, so I saw a hand raised, but it's gone now. Oh, nope, I still see one raised. All right, so I do see a question for Dos, but it looks like you don't have your audio pin set up, so I'm not going to be able to unmute you. So if you want to chat us, if you want to enter your audio pin or chat us your question, I'd be happy to answer that. Feel free to continue to chat us your questions and or raise your hand.
Yeah, so we got a question in here. Franchisor wants to collect optional demographic information, the age, ethnicity, et cetera, of leads, but they want to limit that visibility to specific people within the system when they're logged in. So is that possible? And the answer is yes, there is. And it's going to combine a couple of the features in our system. The first one being the form generator, so you can add in the specific field that you want to collect the information on. And you can add it to whichever tab in the profile. In this case, we'll do primary info. So we'll add in the field, let's say age. And it'll just be a regular text field. We can add that in. And once we get back to the screen here, one of the attributes for the fields in the columns here is PII. I'm
sorry, I have to find it now.
Oh, it's okay. So right now PII is off, but what PII stands for is personally identifiable information. And how that works in the system is it won't show the data in that field unless the user has a specific password that the franchisor can set up. So it'll be start out with asterisk, for example, and you can only give that password to the people that need to know it, and so only they will be able to unlock that field. And you could change that password from the admin side as well. So combining the form generator with our PII functionality, it'll basically lock out the information in that field unless those users with the password enter it, and it'll reveal itself at that time. So hopefully that answers your question.
So we have a question on the line from Amy. Amy, we can reach back out to you on that. There's a question about starting campaigns and how do we start and where do we go. And so for those of you who perhaps have had a sales call with me, or especially more recently, we've had a lot of conversations about where to start with campaigns. And so for those of you who maybe aren't utilizing campaigns today in the sales module, the two places or the two things that I recommend that you start with is a welcome email or what I refer to as a new candidate drip. And this is going to just be a welcome to our franchise organization, or thank you so much for your inquiry. And the second one that I'm going to recommend that you start with is that unregistered state campaign. Okay, so you're going to define where you're going to be selling franchises and where you're not, and then you're going to associate that unregistered state campaign with the unregistered state section that we just covered. And so those are the two campaigns that I always say that's where you want to start. There are some more complex features like triggers and some other automation that the system has, but whenever we're in sales class and we're covering campaigns, I always say we're going to cover all of this stuff, but the place that I want you to start when you get off this call is a welcome email and the unregistered state. Okay, so there's another follow-up question on PII. Did you see that, Joe?
No, I did not. Let's take a look here. So the question is, can you run a report on fields protected by a PII password? I don't think there's a specific report in the system. Your best bet is going to be to go to the form generator and just scan that PII column to see which ones have the checkbox enabled. By default, I think only the Social Security field and the birth date field has that. So unless someone at your franchise has turned that flag on for any of the fields, it's probably only going to be the Social Security and the date of birth.
And if you're looking to run reports on the fields, like if you're looking to go into sales and say, I want to pull reports for this demographic information that you're gathering, then you may have to create a custom report because we're not going to have a standardized report for those PII fields, especially those that you're creating.
I see. Yeah. So I think I misinterpreted the question there a little bit, but I see what you was asking now.
It could be both.
Yeah. So that data won't show on the output of reports. Even if it's a custom report, you'll need to unlock it to view that data. So there won't be a workaround to be able to view that. If you do create a custom report, to pull that information out of the leads profile.
Okay, looks like we've got a hand. Still the same hand. All right, continue asking your questions. We'll be happy to answer them. Please feel free to chat them in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to open up your line and allow you to ask out loud. Good questions, everyone. These are great. All right, while we're waiting for you to ask us some more questions, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our reports and show you one of my favorite reports. Okay, so the question that's on the line is very timely. It's asking about marketing costs and return. And so in the, I'm sorry, and I kind of went there quickly, but in reports, we're going to go ahead and come down to lead to franchise conversion reports. And there's this great report. It's actually one of my favorites. That's marketing cost ROI analysis report. Any report that you pull here in sales at the top is going to allow you to filter out the data. You'll be able to export it to Excel and print it as well. This particular report is great because it allows you to see your marketing costs against the number of leads and locations that have been produced for each of your sources. So in the top example, we have a total number of 27 leads that have come in since July. Our marketing cost has been almost $193,000, with a total cost per lead being around $7,000. We've awarded 12 locations for a total cost per locations of about $16,000. you can see that it gives you some more granular data. For example, we spent $21,000 on a Washington Post ad and got 1 lead in 1 location out of it. That's a really good return, but we did spend a high amount of money. Especially, it's a good return because we turned over and we awarded the 1 inquiry to franchise. Advertisements, on the other hand, we've had 11 leads for a total cost of $2,600 per lead, and we've awarded about half of those locations, which is still a great number, and that has costed us only about $5,000. So you can see how looking at this type of report can help you evaluate where you're spending your marketing dollars and whether or not those marketing dollars are actually turning into awarded locations. Anything you'd like to add, Joe?
Yeah, just you can enter your costs for marketing on the admin page. There's a link in the sales section to configure your costs for each marketing source.
There's another question on the line. Can you also add other data points for other parts of the process besides cost per lead, like cost per discovery day, if we have that as a status? That's a really great question. Off the top of my head, Angela, I cannot think of a report in sales right now that does that, but that is one of the features that's coming within our intelligence module. There is a way that you can track that. So let me go ahead and look, Joe. I'm going to hop on out and just take a look here.
Yeah, nothing comes to my mind right away.
Yeah, Angela, I know that's coming with intelligence because I've been working on the training for that. So that's something that we can review in the next release when intelligence comes. Okay, any other questions on the line? Feel free to raise your hand or ask in the chat box. So while we're waiting for questions, I have another area that comes up pretty frequently when we're talking to customers. In the admin section under sales, we have a new functionality called Setup Status Triggers. And what this does is it allows you to change the status of a lead based on some action that was taken in the system. And so some examples that I use for that is we create a trigger named application. And we're changing the status to application when the lead fills out the application web form. So what this means is if you're using FranConnect's web forms and you've sent one of those web forms to a lead and the lead fills out that form, when they click submit on that form, their status on their record will automatically change to application. On your end, you're like, well, I really need to know that they filled out that application, so how am I going to know that if this status automatically updates? And so the second piece of this is creating triggers in the system to let somebody know that this has occurred. And we do that under sales by clicking Set Up Automated Tasks. Here we can click Add Task Trigger, and when the status is changed to application, for those of you who have been on training calls with me, I always say Jan in the back office. Jan in the back office is like my tried and true, dependable. She's there every day and she gets a bunch of work. And so Jan in the back office is going to be advised that the application and I'm just gonna, I don't have a Jan here, so we're gonna choose poor Jamie. But Jan is going to get a task that says review application paperwork, right? Because there may be things missing, or maybe it's the lead owner and we have that option here as well. So when we set up that auto-generated status change, whenever the application comes in from the lead and the status automatically changes, Jan in the back office gets notified. She reviews that application paperwork, okay? And so there are some places here in the system where you can streamline your process when you know that perhaps a lead is filling out a web form. There's an additional option here in that same status trigger spot where you can actually initiate the change of a status to like initial contact made, for example. This is initial contact made. You can see I use this example sometimes. And the status is changed to initial contact made when the first activity is logged on the record, and specifically that activity is a phone call, okay? So when my lead owner comes into this lead and they log a call for the first time, rather than the lead owner having to physically change the status themselves and worry about that process step, we can have the system say, okay, because a call has been logged on this record, the status is automatically going to change to initial contact made. If we have other follow-up tasks that need to occur as a result of that status change, we saw how we can just set up those automated tasks. Any other questions on the line, folks? So there's a question of where do I find the archive of these webinars? Great question. And it's been asked by someone else on here as well. So last week there were some technical difficulties with GoToTraining, so that one wasn't recorded. But the first one was, and this one is being recorded. So since there seem to be a lot of people looking for these sessions and looking for a sort of archive of these sessions, we'll find out an internal way, we'll figure out an internal way to make sure that we get these back out to you. And so whether that be another GoToTraining catalog similar to this one where you can just log in and listen, or something that our marketing team puts together and sends out to you, we'll make sure that we get an email out to all of you giving you access to these sessions. So if there are no additional questions on the line, we can give you back about 20 minutes of your day. I'm going to leave the session open for just a few minutes longer to allow anybody to ask any additional questions. Last question was what's the schedule again? And remember, these are the main topics for each of these sessions. However, you can ask any question at any time. It does not have to be specific to one of these sessions. So if right now you had a question about the hub, you could absolutely ask it right now. You don't have to wait till November 4th to get your question answered. Okay, we'll give it another minute, and then you all can have 20 minutes of your day back. Unless you have any additional questions, feel free to raise your hand or ask the questions on the line.